I was forced to scam for almost 6 months, working 24 hours a day without payment. Me, myself, I witnessed being electrified with teasers.
One young Bangladeshi man, he said that they used AI and deepfakes to make him look like a very attractive young woman and to persuade them to hand over money.
Hey, it's Hannah here. Welcome back to What in the World, your podcast for the stories that get people talking from the BBC World Service. One sec. Hello? Oh, you know those calls you sometimes get from dodgy numbers, people pretending to be your bank? Or you get a text or an email with a link that you definitely shouldn't click on? Or have you ever had someone drop into your DMs pretending to be a friend or someone who wants to get to know you, and then suddenly they're asking you for money or inviting you to invest in the latest crypto trend? Well, we've all had them, and these kind of scams can be pretty annoying, but also they're expensive if you fall for them. But have you ever thought that the people carrying out the scams could be victims too? In parts of Southeast Asia, Myanmar, Cambodia, there are these huge scam centres, like whole cities. They're built by criminal gangs to carry out all sorts of scams, and the people who work there are often trafficked. They're trapped, beaten, tortured, and forced to scam people for money. So how does this massive industry work, and what's being done to dismantle it? Let's find out more about this now from the BBC Southeast Asia correspondent Jonathan Head in Bangkok. Hi, Jonathan.
Hello.
So you've been to one of these scam centres. Can you tell me a bit about what they actually are and what it was like there?
I mean, it was the most extraordinary place. It's literally a Chinese-built city in the middle of nowhere. I mean, this is in the middle of a war zone in Myanmar. Myanmar is caught up in a huge civil war at the moment, and these Chinese syndicates, the syndicate basically have built a shiny new modern city full of glittering casinos, hotels, shops. We were invited there by them. Now, of course, what they denied was that there were scams going on. We weren't allowed to go in and actually watch scam operations, but we knew from other intelligence we had that there were definitely scams going on there. Later, we interviewed people who'd got away from there and who'd worked in these basically rather anonymous looking buildings. They could be office buildings if they were anywhere else. Sometimes you saw bars on the windows, so you had an idea what might be going on behind them. Right along Thailand's border with Myanmar, it's a long border, it's very porous, very easy to cross. There's lots of these kind of compounds. They've just grown up in the last few years, and we know now from people who've escaped from them, inside them there is this absolutely gargantuan scam business going on, making billions and billions of dollars in every year.
Do you know why these cities have been built in this particular location, in this region?
It's very convenient because Thailand is a very easy place to get to. You can get to the border very easily. It's so easy to cross the little river that divides Thailand from this part of Myanmar. On the other side, because there's a civil war going on, there is no effective government. Lots of armed groups, they all need to make money, and they're reasonably happy to turn a blind eye or even guard these compounds when they're built they're basically Chinese crime syndicates. China's a pretty tightly regulated place. So Chinese crime syndicates have come into this region, into Southeast Asia, and thought, well, it's much easier here. You can bribe people. In Myanmar, you've got warlords. You can pay them off, and you can do pretty much anything you like.
What kind of scams are we talking here? Like, are they texts, emails, the whole lot?
The classic one is called pig butchering. And the reason it's got that name, and it's a rather unpleasant name, is that they build up a relationship with the scam victims. Now, they've got, of course, thousands and thousands of phone numbers they've got from, data companies, or they've got them illegally. You get a message on your WhatsApp, and somebody will ask for a name, and you'll say, it's not them, I'm not them. And they'll say, oh, I'm so sorry. And they're very charming, and they'll look for people who might be lured into a friendship. And they will often spend weeks persuading people that they're actually a great friend and you've got a lot in common before they start talking about investments, particularly in crypto, and how much money they've made. We interviewed one young Bangladeshi man who had escaped, but he said to me, he said, I was a very good scammer, and he felt quite guilty about what he'd done. And he said that they used AI and deepfakes to make him look like a very attractive young woman. And through that, you have romance scams. So you'll often target lonely older men who are likely to have savings, start building a very kind of cozy, intimate relationship with them, or to build up a relationship of trust and to persuade them to hand over money. We all think, I tend to think too, I wouldn't fall for it, but they are very, very clever.
And how do they bring in people? How are people recruited to work there?
Everyone's got a different story. I think you have to think of this as in some ways an offshoot of some of the other global problems we've seen, like, for example, illegal migration. What you have is vast numbers of young people around the world who can't get jobs or don't have very good job opportunities in poorer countries. And what we found is, there are people who are being lured from all over the world to come to these places. Quite often they are offered what sounds like a great job. They'll say, they'll be told, there's a great job in Thailand, you just need some basic English and some basic computer skills. They'll offer a kind of salary. And when they arrive in Thailand, they say, right, come into the van, we're going to drive you to where you're going to work. And they don't realize they're actually going to be smuggled across the border into Myanmar. And once they're there, they get locked inside these compounds that are guarded by the armed groups outside. They're not allowed to leave. And the money is all being made by scamming people in Britain, in Europe, in the United States, in Australia, in China, everywhere. That's why they bring people from all over the world, because they want people with language skills to search out victims pretty much in every country on the planet. Some people go there actually knowing they're going to be working in scam centres, and some of the people who go there are quite good at it and do make quite a bit of money. But of course, there are people who didn't sign up for that. And in particular, those who find they don't like it or they're just not very good at it, they're the ones who really suffer. And there's an awful lot of violence used in these scam compounds. If they want to leave once they're inside, generally the syndicates, the Chinese syndicates that run them, insist they have to pay $20,000, $30,000 and then we'll release you.
Jonathan, we have been hearing from someone who had a similar experience to the ones that you have described. This is Musezi, who was trafficked to Myanmar by one of these gangs.
I'm 23 years old, born and raised in Uganda, Kampala. A friend reached out to me for a job opportunity, and he promised me to work in a supermarket as a data entrant and to be paid $1,200 a month. I reached Bangkok airport, and guess what? Just from the airport, the guy that was supposed to drive me from the airport to the hotel drove me to Myanmar. And just, on the road is when this guy was joined by other guys who were armed. They confiscated my passport, my phone, and everything that I had, and took me to a scamming compound. It's one of the most dangerous camps on the border. We were scamming. I was forced to scam for almost 6 months. Working 24 hours a day without payment, badly punished. I witnessed being electrified with tasers. And if at all you fail to hit targets that were given, these places have prisons called dark rooms, where I was for 1 week without eating anything.
Let's hear how Musezi escaped.
First, these mafia gangs asked us ransom of $10,000 each to get out of this camp. This was 3 months after, being punished and everything that we passed through. The ambassador of Uganda in Malaysia coordinated a rescue mission to help us, because I was living there with a lot of Ugandans. It was difficult for me, but guess what? She never gave up on us. It was just a morning when these people told us, pack your things and go. I didn't believe it. I didn't believe that I was getting out of this hell finally.
This is a massive problem, and I'm going to talk you through some numbers now. So the United Nations says that at least 120,000 people are being forced to work in scam centres in Myanmar. According to the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organised Crime, 29 African countries have been affected by this, and these trafficking networks are now looking for people with English language skills. They're targeting East Africans. This year, more than 800 Ethiopians have been brought out of scam centres in Myanmar, and experts think there could be as many as 2,000 more Ethiopians still there. 200 Kenyans have been repatriated, as well as more than 100 Ugandans. The Global Initiative estimates that at least 5,000 Africans have been recruited to work in these scam centres.
Thailand was put under pressure by China. A lot of the victims are China, both the people being lured into the scam centres and the people being defrauded. So the Chinese government, even though it's Chinese people actually running these scam centres, are now putting pressure on governments in the region and say you've got to stamp down on it. And the Thais did actually start cutting off fuel, cutting off power, cutting off phone access to these scam centres. And so the armed groups decided to sort of appease the Thais by emptying a couple of the scam centres out. About 9,000 people came out. When they got them out of the scam centres, the armed groups then said to the Thais, right, you deal with them. The Thais said, no, we're not going to deal with them because we don't want them stuck here. Some of the African embassies said, not our problem. We're not going to pay for them to go home. And these were thousands of people. China was straightforward. The Chinese sent chartered planes straight down to Thailand, grabbed all the Chinese who came out, zip-tied their hands and took them straight back to China to be processed probably as criminals rather than as victims. But there were all these other people.
Interesting.
And you know, it's very, very messy.
You mentioned, Jonathan, what the authorities are trying to do or making it look like they're doing something. What can they do to tackle this problem? How can they get these centres and these cities shut down?
I don't think they can, because as long as Myanmar is in the state it's in, you've got no real functioning government, you've got a civil war. That's exactly where scam centres thrive. And so many very powerful figures are taking the money and they use that money to buy themselves influence. It's very, very tough. The Thai government now claims it wants to shut them down, but I think it's going to be extremely challenging.
There is so much money to be made off people's loneliness, off their emotions, and as long as we rely on communications as we do and making contact with people and speaking to people who we don't know around the world, then I'm guessing that these scams will continue in one shape or form. Jonathan, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's it for today, but if you like this episode, please do comment, subscribe, and there are plenty more wherever you are listening to or watching this. I'm Hannah. This is What in the World from the BBC World Service, and we'll see you next time.